An iconic presidential journalist just dropped multiple bombshells on Donald Trump in this brutal new book. We're going to take a look at this article that covers those and other behind-the-scenes interactions between Russia and the United States. So let's hop right into it since there's so much stuff to get into here. This would be so crazy. Woodward reports that in the lead up to the Russia invasion, the United States had obtained a treasure trove of intelligence which showed conclusively in October 2021 that Putin had plans to invade Ukraine with 175,000 troops. It was an astonishing intelligence coup from the crown jewels of US intelligence, including a human source inside the Kremlin, Woodward reports. Human sources are among the most sensitive in the intelligence world. It was if they had secretly entered the enemy commander's tent and were hunched over the maps, examining the number and movement of brigades and the entire plan's sequence on the multi-front invasion, Woodward writes. While Biden and his advisors agreed that the plan was dead serious, it was still hard for them and their allies to believe it. This is what Putin plans to do, CIA Director Bill Burns said to Biden according to Woodward. This would be so crazy, Biden responded. Jesus Christ, Biden said, now I've got to deal with Russia swallowing Ukraine. Biden confronted Putin with the intelligence twice in December of 2021, first in a video conference and then in what Woodward describes as a hot 50-minute call that became so heated that at one point Putin raised the risk of nuclear war in a threatening way. Biden responded by reminding Putin that it's impossible to win a nuclear war. Despite repeated warnings, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the idea that Putin would actually invade, even after Vice President Kamala Harris told him during a February 2022 meeting at the Munich Security Conference that an invasion was imminent. Harris told Zelensky that he needed to start thinking about things like having a succession plan in place to run the country if you are captured or killed or cannot govern. After the meeting, Woodward writes, Harris said that she was worried it might be the last time they ever saw him. So yeah, those are some crazy new details that I don't think we've ever seen in terms of like the backstory of how the Russian invasion started. And I think this puts a hole into the claim that Kamala Harris started the Russia-Ukraine war. This was clearly something that Putin had planned far before we ever knew about it. The most hair-raising moment of the whole war. One of the most dramatic scenes in war reveals just how alarmed Biden and his national security team became over the prospect of Putin using nuclear weapons. By September 2022, US intelligence reports deemed exquisite revealed a deeply unnerving assessment of Putin, that he was so desperate about battlefield losses that he might use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Based on the alarming new intelligence reports, the White House believed that there was a 50% chance that Russia would use a tactical nuclear weapon, a striking assessment that had skyrocketed up from 5% and then 10%, Woodward reports. On all channels, get on the line with the Russians, Biden instructed his national security advisor Jake Sullivan. Tell them what we will do in response, he said, according to Woodward. The book recounts a tense phone call between Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Russian counterpart in October of 2022. If you did this, all of the restraints that we've been operating under in Ukraine would be reconsidered, Austin said to Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, according to Woodward. And I apologize, I know I mispronounced that. This would isolate Russia on the world stage to a degree you Russians cannot fully appreciate. I do not take kindly to being threatened, Shoigu responded. Mr. Minister, Austin said, according to Woodward, I am the leader of the most powerful military in the history of the world. I don't make threats. That is such a good line. I could tell that that's definitely going to be in a movie someday. 2 days later, the Russians requested another call. This time, the Russian defense minister dramatically claimed that the Ukrainians were planning to use a dirty bomb, a false story that the US believed the Kremlin was pushing as a pretext to deploy a nuclear weapon. We don't believe you, Austin said firmly in response, according to Woodward. We don't see any indications of this, and the world will see through this. Don't do it, he said to Shoigu. I understand, he replied. It was probably the most hair-raising moment of the whole war. Colin Kahl, a senior Pentagon official, later said of the episode. Which makes sense because it sounds like they were on the brink of nuclear war this entire time. Like Putin was holding nothing back when he was claiming that he might do nuclear war. So So I'm glad that the Biden administration were able to stay calm and pressure Putin to not go to those lengths. So now we're here at the juicy Trump bombshell, so let's go ahead and take a look at this next section. What Trump secretly sent to Putin. The book also contains new details about Trump's relationship with the Russian president. In 2020, Woodward writes, Trump had secretly sent Putin a bunch of Abbott point-of-care COVID test machines for his personal use. During the height of the pandemic, Russia and the United States did exchange medical equipment such as ventilators, but Putin, who infamously isolated himself over fears of COVID, told Trump on a phone call to keep the delivery of the Abbott machines quiet, Woodward reports. Please don't tell anyone that you sent these to me, Putin said to Trump, according to Woodward. I don't care, Trump replied, fine. No, Putin said, I don't want you to tell anyone because people will get mad at you, not me. They don't care about me. Woodward writes that Trump had stayed in touch with Putin after leaving office. In one scene, Woodward recounts a moment at Mar-a-Lago where Trump tells a senior aide to leave the room so he could have what he said was a private phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Trump's aide, there have been multiple phone calls between Trump and Putin, maybe as many as 7 in the period since Trump left the White House in 2021, Woodward writes. Woodward asked Trump aide Jason Miller whether Trump and Putin had spoken since he left the White House. Not that I'm aware of, Miller told Woodward. I have not heard that they're talking, so I'd push back on that, Miller added. Woodward writes that Biden's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, carefully hedged when asked about whether there were any post-presidency Trump-Putin calls. I would not purport to be aware of all context with Putin. I wouldn't purport to speak to what President Trump may or may not have done, Haines said, according to Woodward. And don't worry, there's more Trump stuff here in this next section. Trump is becoming more erratic. Woodward also writes about Trump's decision to run for president again, including a series of conversations with his ally and golfing buddy, Senator Lindsey Graham. Going to Mar-a-Lago is a bit like going to North Korea, Graham said. Everybody stands up and claps every time Trump comes in. That is a huge damning statement just on its own, especially since there was that leaked clip of Trump saying that he wants it to be like North Korea where everyone stands and claps at attention for the president. The South Carolina Republican is quoted as saying Biden won fair and square, but that Trump doesn't like to hear that. Woodward goes on to describe Graham's attempts to give the Trump campaign advice for 2024. You've got a problem with moderate women, Graham told Trump after the midterms. The people that think that the earth is flat and that we didn't go to the moon, you've got them. Let that go. If you needed no more proof that the Republicans know that they're pandering to the dumbest people in America, look no further than this. They know that the earth is not flat, and they know that we did go to the moon, but they acknowledge that their base are the dumbest people in this country. It amazes me how these people do not see that they're just being lied to. But anyway, Graham repeatedly urged Trump to move on from the 2020 election, telling him if he is reelected, then January 6th won't be your obituary. I gave a speech today and I only mentioned the 2020 election twice, Trump said to Graham a few days later, as if it had shown maximum restraint, Woodward writes. Oh, look at me, I only lied about the election twice today. What a great improvement. As Trump framed his presidential campaign around fear, Woodward writes that Graham said of the former president, Trump is becoming more erratic. These court cases, I think they would rattle anybody. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff in this one section here that is just huge. Republicans like Lindsey Graham know that Biden won fair and square. And they also know that Trump tends to like to act like a dictator, as seen here. They know that Trump is getting more and more crazy and unhinged. And they also know that he has to be babied this much. Like Trump is searching for compliments about not lying as much as he usually does. This is not the kind of president that we want in office. Our congressmen should not have to baby our president and give him treats and rewards for not lying as much. So overall, I think that this shows without a doubt Trump is treated like a little kid that is popular on the playground. The adults want to control the other crazy kids who won't listen to them, so they get the popular kid to control the others for them. Whether it's Putin or Lindsey Graham, it seems that everybody knows how to pull a good favor with Trump, which basically allows them to control him however they want. This is why it is just so dangerous to have Trump back in the White House. We can't have a president that is this easily manipulated as the head of the free world.